into a lot of battles with World War I because, one, the United States didn't fight in a major battle in World War I. Yeah.
Okay. It's supposed to be in the imperialism folder?
Yeah. We didn't really fight any major battles in World War I. We got there late. So, but World War I is a really fascinating war because how it got started was a mess. Like World War II, you'd have obvious like, hey, this is war. This is a declaration of war. There's a reason why they declare war on each one of these people. World War I is weird, and we'll go over that. So, first up, you have the main causes of the war in Europe, and I should have actually had like this kind of flipped because it makes a nice acronym. You're looking at the causes of World War I, you want to talk about the main causes of World War I, right? It spells out main. Militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. All right, so first up, so the main causes of World War I. But we're going to do it backwards. Nationalism. Nationalism is not the same as patriotism. Nationalism is patriotism on drugs, so to speak. It's intense. Its definition is pride in one's country, but it goes beyond that. It goes to the point of my country, right or wrong. You talk trash about my country, then those are fighting words. We're going to go to war over it. My country is better than your country. Not just I'm happy, I'm proud of my country. My country's better than yours. And if you challenge that idea, I want to prove it to you. Meaning, I'm going to use my military. So that's why nationalism is dangerous. It's not just pride in your country. It's not just patriotism. It's patriotism on steroids, where it gets kind of dangerous. Next is imperialism. We kind of went over this at the beginning of when he talked about imperialism, where you have the stuff going on in Africa. Basically, in Europe, there's actually a map back there that's the map of Europe in 1914 before the war broke out. They can't expand anymore. So if you have like Germany who wants to get bigger, it can't get bigger in Europe. There's no possibility. Great Britain is an island. They can't expand anywhere. So what they were doing is they were playing out their own individual rivalries. Like Germany and France hated each other. They're playing out their rivalries, though, by taking up land in Africa and taking up land in Asia. So they're able to expand their borders, expand their areas of control, while also preventing other countries from taking those resources. So you can play out your rivalry in a non-militaristic sense through imperialism. That's one thing they were doing. Next is alliances, which this is a big one, which we'll come to in a moment. So basically, you had secret alliances between these countries. They weren't secret. It was more like what was actually in their alliances was secret, but you knew they were allied. So you had Germany and Austria-Hungary, which is one country here, and also Italy. That's called the Triple Alliance. Britain, France, and Russia also had an alliance known as the Triple Entente. These alliances were just defensive alliances, meaning if someone attacks you, if somebody goes to war against you and then declares war on you, I'll come in and help you. I promise that I will help you. However, they didn't really make that clear that that's what these alliances were. Instead, it looked like if you're, let's say, Germany. Germany is sandwiched between France and Russia. So for Germany, the Triple Entente looked a little bit like France and Russia are about to team up to go to war against me. And I'm going to have a two-front war. And the same thing was happening the other way. So they didn't really specify. These were just defensive, which of course causes suspicion and a lack of trust. And then finally, militarism. These countries, especially Britain and Germany, were just building up their militaries and building up their militaries, especially their navies. And if you're spending all this money on your military, actually just in general, if you spend a lot of money on something, are you just going to want it to sit there?
No.
Or do you want to use it?
I want to use it.
Yes. So if you're taking really big pride in glorifying your military, you want to prove that your military is the best in the world. This was especially the case between Germany and Britain. My military is better than your military. And then when you add that into nationalism, you've got the recipe right there for a war. I'm going to prove to you I'm better than you, and I already hate you, so let me prove to you I'm better than you in every way, and my military is better than you. So right here you have the recipe for the war breaking out in Europe. Questions about that? Now, for those of you who know anything about World War I, if you know anything about World War I, what do you associate with being the actual, like, this is the cause of World War I? What caused World War I to break out? What event?
Someone got assassinated?
Someone got assassinated. Exactly. Actually, hold on, before we get to there. This is the map of Europe before World War I. So you can see here you have, I'll show you the Triple Alliance, which is Germany and Austria-Hungary and Italy. So they're allied together. Britain, France, and Russia. Other countries I want to point out because they're important for World War I. Belgium here, as you can see, between Germany and France. And Serbia is right here. And actually that's Bosnia right there, but it's Bosnia, not Montenegro. Bosnia is right there. Bosnia-Herzegovina is right there. So this area right here, actually it's right here. I'm sorry. It's actually right here because Austria-Hungary did take it over. So what is now today Bosnia is right here. These two areas become very, 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 very important in just a moment. And the Ottoman Empire also takes a role in this. And the Ottoman Empire, of course, doesn't exist today. It's Turkey. Okay, so the immediate cause. This is known as like the trigger. In June 28, 1914. Huh?
The day after my birthday, it was like great.
On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, or Francis Ferdinand, but he's typically known as Franz Ferdinand, gets assassinated. Actually, I said it. It's wrong. It wasn't in Serbia. It was in Bosnia. He was assassinated in Bosnia. So basically, Bosnia has been taken over by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Neighboring Serbia wants Bosnia to rejoin Serbia. It used to be part of it. They want it back, and they're also worried that Austria-Hungary wants to take over Serbia because they do. So, and what's significant about Franz Ferdinand is, yeah, he's Archduke, but he's the heir to the throne. He's like the prince of the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and he's the only heir to the throne. He doesn't have a younger sibling. He doesn't have kids yet. So he goes to, it's actually this is one of those things that make you kind of question if fate is actually a thing. He goes to, it was Sarajevo. He goes to Sarajevo, and while he's there, a Serbian nationalist group, a terrorist organization called the Black Hand, makes an assassination attempt. They bungle it though. They throw a bomb and it explodes, but doesn't impact the Archduke's motorcade. So Archduke gets away. Of course, this causes a lot of damage and people have to go to the hospital. The Archduke says, I want to go to the hospital. I want to go visit these people that were harmed in this attempt at my life. So he starts going. His motorcade turns to start going to the hospital. Now, because of this explosion, there's been a reroute of traffic. So there's congestion. They go down a road, which they made a wrong turn and went down the wrong road, and they get stopped in traffic. While they're sitting there in an open air car, so think like a convertible, and they're highly recognizable, a member of the Black Hand, who was part of the assassination attempt, finished up a sandwich at a cafe. He literally just went for lunch.
This is so weird.
He steps outside onto the sidewalk outside of the cafe, and who is directly in front of him sitting in their car? The Archduke and his wife. So he's like,
God.
Where's timing?
boom, boom, kills him. Kills the Archduke and his wife.
I'm full and I got the job done.
Wanna look this one after one?
Can you see? Isn't that crazy? A wrong turn and traffic got him killed. So of course this leads to Austria starts issuing these demands for Serbia. Like, you just killed our heir. We're going to have some issues. So they issue these demands, and one of them was that Austria-Hungary gets to send troops into Serbia to investigate the assassination, to make sure the Serbian government had nothing to do with it. The Serbian government says, this is just your way of taking us over. No, we refuse. So Austria turns around and says, well, that's war. And they invade Serbia. And I will draw this out on the board so you can see what happens next. So, I need some markers for this, because this is where it becomes a convoluted mess. Alright, so
Tragic.
so you have Austria declares war and invades Serbia. You think that's kind of reasonable right here?
Yeah.
Okay, you can justify that one a bit. Well, you know I talked about alliances? Well, Serbia had an alliance with Russia. So I'm going to put blue there because they're friends. Blue for friends, red for enemies. Serbia and Russia are buddies. They have a defensive alliance. Serbia got invaded. So based off of the alliance, Russia
We'll invade Austria.
has to declare war on Austria. Russia's not in a position to invade yet. Their military is not really put together that well. So Russia declares war on Austria. Well, if you saw the Triple Alliance, which means Germany, they're buddies and have an alliance with Austria, which means once Russia declares war on Austria, Germany declares war on Russia. Russia has a defensive alliance with France. After World War I, France really does suck. France declares war on Germany. So, what's of note here
Croissant.
is Britain. Is Britain. Britain has this defensive agreement with France, but Britain says, hey, France, you declared war on Germany, not the other way around. We're good. We're out of it. We'll be good. Except for Germany makes a plan, and it's called the Schlieffen Plan. It's named after one of their generals. In the Schlieffen Plan, if we go back to the actual map, if you're France, where is Germany going to invade at?
Down the east.
Maybe right there, where the actual border's at. So the French move their troops there.
North.
If you're Germany, though, what's another way you could come in? Through Belgium. So Germany instead initiates the Schlieffen Plan and invades through Belgium. Their plan there is there's not going to be very many French troops here. We run through Belgium really fast, and we take Paris before the French army can even react. You take Paris, you've taken the capital, war's over. Nice and sweet then, right? And then Germany can turn around and attack Russia. All before Russia has a chance to actually do anything with their military. Because they're all spread out, so they have to have time to get their troops mobilized into the West. So Germany's plan, knock out France real fast, and you do that through invading. One color again. You're invading neutral Belgium. Belgium is neutral and is like not involved with anybody. So that ticks off Great Britain. Because Germany just invaded Belgium. Britain said you had no reason. They were neutral. They didn't do anything. We'll invade, declare war on you. So now, and you have Italy hanging out here going, now we're good. They say that until 1915 when Britain offers them a bunch of land right here, and then Italy joins the Allies. So, that is how you get World War I. So what should have been a war right here,
Spread out because people started getting together.
and the part of the war that you really learn about and know about because it's the big place, happens here. So when you think about this being the war between Germany and France and Britain mostly, it started because of something with these two, because of alliances. See, alliances, convoluted mess. So moving on. There's the Archduke and his wife, actually on the date of their assassination. They're actually able to really identify them because of, she was well known for her hats. So who's this lady with these fancy hats? That must be Princess Sophie. Let's kill them. Yeah, it's an artistic depiction where it's kind of hard to see here because there's the color contrast. Here's the car. Here's the gunman. There's the Archduke. There's his wife. That's obviously an artistic depiction. So you get the war breaks out, and you get the Central Powers versus the Allied powers. This is not to be confused with World War II. In World War I, it's Central Powers versus Allied because they're in the center of Europe versus just the Allied countries. So here you get everybody that's involved. Like I said, Italy switches sides. So it's mostly these guys right here. And Bulgaria is also on the side of the Central Powers. And Serbia, obviously, is going to be on the side of the Allies. There's a map for you to see how it's divided. You see a better idea of why it's called the Central Powers there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked briefly about the Schlieffen Plan, where Germany is going to invade France through Belgium. Most French are on what is known as the French troops are on the Maginot Line, which is the border between Germany and France. The plan there is to get to Paris before the French troops could stop the Germans and take over France before Britain could get involved in the war. They figured Britain would eventually join, especially because they knew if invading Belgium that that Britain was going to join. But they expected to just be able to pretty much walk through Belgium. That didn't happen. Belgium was prepared and have very well fortified cities, so Germany gets slowed down. They get slowed down to the point that Britain gets there before they could really do anything. And France has enough time to move their troops. I mean, they get pretty close to Paris before they're pushed back, but so here's the Schlieffen Plan on a map. You can see here, the Maginot Line's over here. Just move in here, and then you can sweep around and trap them. That's the plan. Pretty sound plan, isn't it? Actually, it is. It's a pretty good plan, except Belgium.
They were ready.
They were ready. It's possible, had Belgium not been quite prepared, Germany may have won this war pretty early on. So, like we said, Sykes-Picot was successful. Yes, they were able to quickly somewhat move towards the French capital of Paris. They didn't get it, though. They got close. But Belgium fought back, which gave France time to stop the German advance to Paris, and Britain was able to make it to France before Germany could end the war. And then you get the hot mess of the war that it became. And that's where it got stuck. This right here is pretty much where 4 years of fighting occurred in this strip of land.
For 4 years, just continuous?
In trenches.
Oh, okay.
This is the trench war. Okay, so we will actually... You want to keep going? Sure. Okay. So the fighting that was actually occurring here, why it took so long was because it was trench warfare. They dug in. So you have trenches that are facing each other in the trenches. If you've ever seen the movie, it came out last year, 1917. Really good movie that has a really good depiction of how the trenches work. So you have the two trenches facing each other, great like network, like weaving like various different veins coming off of the main trench. And in the middle was no man's land.
Yeah.
Also, if you've seen Wonder Woman, saw the Wonder Woman movie, she runs through no man's land.
Yeah.
With ease, but you could kind of see what was happening around her. They'd be like, you don't want to go in there. It's called no man's land because you would die. Chances are you would die. And also they had this brand new invention that helped the war be really awful, and it was chemical warfare and poison gas. So specifically mustard gas. Some of these gases, you can't smell them. You might be able to see them, or you might not, or some of them, you couldn't see them, but you could smell them. And by the time you reacted, you were probably already doomed to die. Because it would get in your lungs, and it would cause your lungs to blister and bleed. So you would slowly, like, you would drown in your own blood. Oh, it was a nasty, which is why they're banned by the Geneva Conventions. So yeah, there's barbed wire and landmines in this no man's land area. So what would happen when they would go to fight? You're like, all right, we gotta have a battle. So you can't really battle from your trench. So they would line up their troops at the edge of the trench, blow a whistle, and the troops would start going over into no man's land. And you have machine guns. So if you're on the opposite side of the trench, you're just able to mow lines of advancing troops down. Plus, they're getting caught in barbed wire, or they're getting exploded by landmines. So, can you imagine the death tolls in these battles? Casualties in some of these battles, like the Battle of Verdun, which is one of the really well-known ones, or the Battle of the Arno, or the Battle of the Somme. They, casualty rates went over 1 million in battles. Some of these battles took a couple days. But there was one battle where 1 million Germans died. 1 million British and French soldiers died in a battle. For comparison, our worst war, we lost 600,000 people altogether. These would be a multiple day events. So this is a war of which had never been seen before. This casualty rate was absurd. And what's making it worse is a blockade, which this is important because when we get to the United States joining, this plays a big part in it. Britain blockaded Germany. If you look, wrong way. Actually, that's what I want. If you look here at Germany, Germany doesn't have much access to the Atlantic Ocean, does it? Yeah, a little bit of spot here to get out, a little bit of spot here to get out. You can come down here by Britain, or you have to go above Britain. So what Britain did is they blockaded it. You put submarines and other ships right here and across here. If you do that, with Germany being surrounded by enemies, they're trapped. How are they going to sell that trade with other countries? They can't. If they're low on food, how are they going to be able to import food? They can't. So Germany is in a little pickle here with this blockade. Oh, I went the wrong way. So this causes starvation in Germany. And you get the advent, and airplanes were invented briefly before the war. So this is the first war. We have airplane usage in it. Have you ever heard of the Red Baron?
I've heard it.
That's World War I German fighter pilot. So here's some actual photographs. Wouldn't you want to live in that for 4 years? Oh, look how wet the ground is there. Imagine if it rains, the mud. That's a recipe for getting sick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or getting trench foot because your feet are wet all the time. You gotta go out and go fight. Run across no man's land. So here's kind of an artistic depiction, a drawing of a trench. So you can see digging in it. You're this guy's actually got a little telescope looking out. This guy's sleeping because that's where you carved out your beds. You would have dogs in the trench because they serve a very important role because you see this little guy right there? It's a perfect place for rats to live. So rats also spread disease. So they would have dogs and cats in the trenches because they could go take care of the rat problem. Would you want to live there for 4 years?
No.
Absolutely not. And this picture was, I don't remember when this picture was taken. Within the last 10 years, I think. Those are trenches today. Like World War I trenches. And then that would be a crater from an artillery explosion. The land in this area is still scarred from World War I, which ended over 100 years ago. And by the way, you can only fly over that area. You can't walk through it. Because you will probably die.
Landmines.
There's a bunch of landmines and unexploded bombs and grenades that are littering that area. They've been trying to clean it up. They're averaging about a quarter of a mile every year.
Do they ever have accidental explosions?
Well, they use robots.
Oh, okay, then they're fine.
So they detect the metal, they dig it out, they go. And there's so much that they can only get a quarter of a mile a year. There's 400 miles of trenches.
Oh my, this my kids will be. Where do they use the bathroom?
And they peed in the holes.
Yeah, they're men. You just whip it out.
Whip it out, let it out.
Another way to get
Or a
paid.
bucket.
Another way to
If you
get
wanted to
paid.
be nice about it.
Well, I mean, for
Oh,
the other
that.
end. Throw it in a bucket and chuck it out. Sanitary, right?
Right, disgusting.
Maybe hopefully you have paper towels, but that's probably or paper or toilet paper.
So they're mud, they smell bad.
They're dirty. They've got disease,
Everywhere.
and that's the least of their
Right.
problems.
the least of the most of their problems is
And that's actually where we're going to stop. So, yeah. And then, of course, you get the fun stuff of all these explosions happening to you nonstop. You probably you likely have been shot at some point, or you watched your buddy get mowed down going over the trenches. You're terrified all the time of having to go over into this no man's land and run across. You're just waiting you're just waiting to die if you're one of these soldiers. Or an explosion went off in your trench and the person standing next to you died, but you lived.
And you have to see it.
And you have to see it. And the other side is constantly bombarding the trenches, like constantly. You're hearing explosions 24 hours a day. How do you think your mental state is?
Destroyed.
That's why you get something known as shell shock that comes out of World War I, where they would call it the 1,000-yard stare. Like, they're alive, but they're just not there. We have another name for that now. Do you know what we call it?
PTSD.
That's PTSD. So a lot of troops that came home would have come back with PTSD. Do you want a happy World War I story?
Not really.
You don't want a happy,
I-
sweet, cute kind of World War I story?
But this feels realistic.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, this actually happened.
Oh, well then, I'll take it.
The first year of the war in 1914, Christmas came. Some of you may have heard this one. On Christmas, they don't fight. They don't bombard each other. They're like, all right, you're gonna let your troops kind of like just relax. It's a holiday, relax.
But tomorrow.
So, well, hold that thought. So everything's kind of quiet, and I actually think it starts with the German troops can be heard in the British trenches singing Christmas carols. I don't know if you're aware of this, but most of our Christmas songs are actually German, and they just are translated to English. So the English know the songs that are being sung because they get told by the tone, and the British respond by joining them, by singing. So you have the singing of Christmas carols across no man's land. And they continue for a while doing this same singing where they would they would like cheer each other on and stuff. Sure, these are people.
Right. Yeah, these are regular people.
There's are regular people. They don't know anything about that other person. It's just another person that probably could have been their best friend if not in a situation of war. Eventually, a couple soldiers get brave and they climb out of the trench. This is before no man's land is completely littered with landmines. This is the first year of the war. And then the other side sees this, and they're unarmed, and they climb out of the trench. And they meet in the middle, and they celebrate Christmas together. There were soccer matches between them. They know, there were pictures of it. They were playing soccer with each other. And as always happens, of course, Germany won the soccer match because it was Britain they were playing. as normal. But so they celebrated with each other. They shared food. They celebrated Christmas together. And then at the end of the night, they went back to their trenches. And the next day came, and they get orders, all right, start shooting, and they refused. Because they made friends. That person is not this evil German, and that person's not this evil British person across the way. They're an actual person. A face you've seen, and you've spoken to them, and you've hung out, and you've enjoyed recreational time together. So what happens is you have, so the next day, obviously the soldiers don't want to fight each other. But their officers are like, all right, you got to fight. And they're refusing to go fight. There it comes to the point where like the main command is having to go, all right, this is like they have to start fighting. So they would point guns at them and go, if you don't follow orders, we'll kill you. And we'll get troops in here who will follow orders. So basically, forced on both sides, forced with threats of being killed for refusing to follow orders, the war restarts. Before a brief, and that is why today, following this one, there is absolutely no, what's the phrase? No, because you can still celebrate, you just can't.
Right.
It's something with the enemy, is what the phrase is. No fraternizing with the enemy. You're not allowed to celebrate with the enemy. You're not allowed to be friendly to the enemy. They don't allow that anymore because then why would you want to keep fighting? The war still has to go on, and now you have troops that don't want to do it.
Well, then at that point, I feel like it's resolved. Like,
Not really.
Remember this thing about wars. The soldiers, the people that actually fight and die in wars, very rarely have anything to do with why the war is actually occurring.
They're doing a job.
They're just doing a job that in some cases they're required to do. That they're just required to do. They have to do what they have to do. The war typically is a war between governments, not the actual people.
The government just use the people.
The governments just use the people to fight their wars.
Why don't the government?
Because
They don't
that's why they have you guys.
That's what they have armies.
Yeah,
Because then they're going to say, who's going to run the country then?
the bigger the better.
I know, we should have done it like the old school way, like the old, like, pre-Roman way. Here's our big soldier, give me one of your best soldier. They fight to the death. Whoever wins, that's it. One person dies, we all go home.
GG, 15.
Yeah.